So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us for this intimate conversation with Miss Lucy Cooper. At this point in time, I would like to actually hand over the floor to Lucy so she can introduce herself to you.
My goodness, hello. My name's Lucy Cooper, as you've already been told. I'm from the UK. I was invited to come over here to Trinidad to do the very first iTEC exams at I Am Me Vocational Training yesterday, which went very well. And I've been invited back today to give a little bit of an insight into the beauty industry and my experience and how it's changed over the 40 odd years that I've been in the industry and how it can benefit the people of Trinidad that want to actually come and train here. I'm delighted to be asked. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lucy. Joining us as well is our hairdressing educator, Miss Suzette Bazzi-Walters.
Nice to see some of you all here again today. It shows that you all were really interested in what you all did yesterday and very satisfied with the outcome. For the new ones, I am hoping to see you all on board soon. Before the end of this session, we'll give you all the date of our next exam. So get prepared from all now. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend.
So the purpose of today's discussion is really to have an intimate discussion with Lucy. I mean, we wanted and we are sincerely grateful to iTEC for actually sending her. She was truly a delight in conducting the examinations yesterday. We were quite nervous because our interaction with iTEC thus far is one that is extremely professional. Everything that they do is at a significantly different standard to what we are used to here in the Caribbean. It is our vision, I Am Me's vision, to really be the catalyst for change within the cosmetology industry. We have so many beautiful and very talented persons in Trinidad and Tobago. However, we are not yet operating at the standard we possibly can to have the same level of earnings to the first world countries like the UK and the US. And it is for this reason that we would have taken the brave step to try and get the license to offer the iTEC qualification so that we can begin the journey of transition. And I believe that once the cosmetology industry is functioning at the standard that it should be, it now creates opportunity for us as beauty professionals to really have access to some of the standard of living that the other industries have. Ideally, hairdressing salons should be licensed or should be have insurance for in case there are any emergencies. There is insurance available, but we don't practice it. This is the direction we should actually be going because it will have an impact on the tourism industry. So we have Lucy here, and Lucy would really tell us about her experience. She would have visited almost every country in the world by now.
Not quite.
And she would have seen, she would have assisted centers, she would have assisted countries in moving from one step to the other. And it is for this reason I'm hoping that after this conversation, persons are intrigued and motivated to want to be better than we are. It's not just about the skill, it's about the professionalism. We have the skill, we just don't have the attitude. And in some instances, we don't have the knowledge. We don't understand the science behind what it is we actually do. And having gone through the exam yesterday, I recognize, although I know the standard was high, I mean, there are some simple things, but very essential things that would really, really, really make the difference for our industry as a Caribbean people. So, Lucy, we have a lot of questions here for you.
That's fine. Bring it on. It's fine.
So, granted that iTEC is now new to Trinidad and Tobago, my first question is, how do you see it shaping the future of the beauty and wellness sector in our country? Now that we have iTEC here, how do you see it influencing and what do you think we can actually do? Granted that it's a culture shift that we're looking at, what do you think we can actually do to help shift that mindset and allow persons to see the value of enhancing the quality of our skills?
That's a tough one because a lot of people say if it's not broken, don't fix it. And I firmly believe that nothing's a problem until it actually becomes a problem. So whilst you've got clients that are very happy and coming to you and everything's going fine, that's fine. But as you've mentioned, we do have, unfortunately, a trend in our industry where people are starting to look to make money by taking therapists to court for whatever reason. So it's very, very important to make sure that right from the word go, you are protecting yourself with doing a proper consultation, that your hygiene is absolutely key, that you are delivering a high standard service, and that you can show that you have been properly trained. Because if you don't have that kind of knowledge and background, and if you haven't got insurance in place, you could actually lose everything you've got. It's very important also, especially for people that don't necessarily want to stay here forever, maybe want to go experience the world, but also work, earn a living, come back. It gives you access to wherever we're recognised in, I think it's over 60 countries in the world. You can then also be recognised. You can go and you'll have an iTEC qualification. It shows that you've got recognition, you've trained to a specific level. It's quality assured, which means every few years, each qualification is looked at again. It's mapped against national occupational standards. It's matched to EU standards. We have subject matter experts looking after every single qualification. It's not just one, it's a team. To make sure that everything is kept updated, relevant and current. It also means that if you do travel abroad, if you want to extend your training, if you've already got some iTEC qualifications, you can go to another iTEC college and you will have your same candidate number and you can go there and you can further your studies. So it does give you access. A lot of our students go on to work on the cruise ships. I was actually in Cape Town on a holiday just before I was doing some examining there quite some years ago. My girls were quite small. And one of the therapists there, she was working, giving my daughters a little mini mani-pedi. And she said to me, "Ma'am, can I ask you, did you examine in Durban last year?" And I said, "I did." And she said, "Because you examined me." And I said, "Oh, good. I hope you passed." That was a joke. She did. She was very good. I've actually met students in different countries. So I examined in Ireland 1 year. I met her 3 years later in Malta. I even saw one of my students from Ireland on a quiz show, believe it or not, on television. But it does show that you've got a skill. It shows that you've actually studied to a particular standard that is measured, quality assured, and it's a stepping stone. Your level 2 and 3, you're working more on clients. The more you go up, you're not so much working on clients. You're working more towards management or the assessing or quality assurance, unless you're doing more the aesthetics qualifications like the peels and the needling, which we're bringing more out. We're getting more involved in that. Have I answered your question? Gosh, it opens up such a world for you. Personally, I know that you asked me about a bit of a bio, but I started in this industry. I was trained in graphic design. I did makeup because I enjoyed it, but I fell into that. And I kind of fell into this industry, into the beauty industry, doing makeups for friends, for bar mitzvahs, for weddings. And then I was asked to join a colour house, Estee Lauder, and I worked with them for some years. And I was asked to join Clarins, so I did all my body work. Then I went back in and I trained as a holistic therapist. So I've worked at lots of different levels in this industry. You'll never be bored. There's always something different to do and something different to learn. At one point, I was running one of the largest cash and carries in the country for OG, which was bought out by Sally International. I teach. I love training people. I love sharing my knowledge. I love showing people, breaking down a skill and showing somebody who thinks something's hard how to do it really well. I love sharing knowledge. And I think it's because at school I struggled. I have dyslexia. I do have a form of ADHD and butterfly brain, which makes me a really good, anyone that's got any kind of learning difficulty, there's a blessing, I promise you, there's a blessing in that difficulty. Either it will be an attention to detail or it will be something else that makes you look at a problem a different way to other people. And I tell you, in this industry, it is such a blessing because it's all about interpersonal skills, loving what you do, loving people, even the unlovable ones. I heard a student this morning saying that whenever she looks at feet, she doesn't see a problem foot. She sees an opportunity of what can she do to make that better. I love that. That sings to my heart. That is just so amazing. It's about giving. Really is. I've worked in film. I've worked on television. I've worked, behind the scenes, not actually on. So this is very unusual for me. Now technology, as a holistic therapist, there's always something new to learn. So it doesn't just stop here. Just because you might have done an exam yesterday in makeup or mani-pedi, that could lead to media makeup, or it could lead to reflexology. It could lead to a whole different thing. So I'm going to shut up now. I think I've said too much. Sorry, I have such a passion for this industry. I get so excited. I just said I was going to shut up and I carried on. I'm so sorry.
So before I actually hand over, thank you very much, Lucy, the mic to Suzette for her to ask a question. There is one thing that you said, and I think it's one of the challenges that I can foresee us having as a country or as a professional in the industry, is that consultation form. Now, we filled out the consultation form and we thought we did a good job, in terms of trying to get persons to provide information. The information can be perceived as very personal, very invasive, especially if I'm just coming to do a facial, why is it necessary for me to divulge when was my last menstrual cycle? Okay. Persons would be like, but why are you asking me that? Or why are you asking me about my medical history? I am just here to do a mani-pedi. But after sitting with you yesterday, I see the value in it, but I do see it as persons would not be accustomed to that, because we usually just walk into a shop and say, hey, I would like to get my hair braided. And the therapist or the hairdresser would just look at your hair and based on the thickness or the style, just give you a price. In some instances, we may not even sanitize the hair at all. We just start to braid the hair. So just having that consultation, but I saw the value in it. But I want you to touch a little on it, the importance of consultation within the industry. It's actually, I told you yesterday, it's like a medical record. When you see it, it's really like a record that a doctor will have on a patient, but you really, really appreciate why. But I just want you to touch on it just a little so persons can understand the value.
Yeah, no problem at all. Consultation is absolutely key. If you think of, we are therapists. If you look at the word therapy, it's actually taken from a Greek word, which actually means a helping relationship. So what we're doing with our clients is we're building a relationship over time where we get to know them. So one of the ways we get to know them is through a consultation. Your consultation is a legal document. If somebody tries to take you to court for any reason, your consultation is the proof of what you did and the conversation you had and what they told you and what was missing. Okay? So if you have a problem with your client saying, why do you need to know all this? It's important because if it changes the way that I have to do my treatment or how I have to treat you, it's valid. And that can be something like what kind of cleanser you need to use, or it could even be something like, for instance, we ask about, as you said, menstrual cycle. So sometimes people will have a breakout, particularly around their menstrual cycle. Why do we ask about children? I'm not going to give my client a 7-step expensive routine if she's a busy mum with 2 tiny toddlers running around her feet. I want to understand my client's world, their way, so I can tailor my treatment to be absolutely bespoke to that particular client. So it's not what I did on my last client or my next client or my client last week or my client in 3 months' time. It's for this particular client. So it's relevant. It helps you tailor and bespoke, and it also helps you make everything relevant. It's really, really important. So it's also, as I said to you yesterday, it's like a communication. I have a memory of an elephant. I'm lucky. But we're all busy and we all do lots of different things. And hopefully sometimes we sleep between different things. So sometimes you can't remember what you said. You can't remember what your client told you. So your consultation is a communication between you and another therapist. So maybe past you, future you, past you, somebody else, and a colleague. If your client comes in, they can see exactly what you did. They can see where you put what, how you did it, what nail shape you filed, what color they used. We used for instance, yesterday about, okay, I used red nail varnish. Well, which red? Is it CND? Is it DND? Is it OPI? Is it SE? Who's red? There's so many different reds. Look at OPI. They've got about 200 reds, all with fantastic names. So it can actually help you pick out, because she might say to you, oh, I really loved that one last week, but I want something a little bit warmer or a bit cooler, or it helps. It's all about gathering information. It shows you what you've retailed. It shows you what you've said. If you tell her not to, after her wax, not to go bathing in the communal pool or in the sea, and she comes back and says, look, I've got little marks all over my leg, you can say, well, that looks like it might be inflamed follicles. Did you go to the beach? Did you expose yourself to sun? Or, well, I did tell you not to. Yeah, it's a record. And your client signs it and you sign it. So that will actually it will stand up in court. It's also nice just to ask about your client's life. So I'll always make a note if they're going on holiday, or if they've got children, when their birthdays are, or anything special coming up. So when they come back in, I can say, oh, how did that go? And they get so impressed because, oh, how lovely you remembered. Well, maybe I did, but also maybe I didn't, but I've made a little note. It's nice to make a note of your client's preferences. It's nice also if they have a different outlook on life, or a different, they celebrate a different festival than you do. You can wish them well for their festival. It shows that you understand that people have differences. We have diverse cultures, and I think that's also really important. So that's why anything that is going to change how I treat my client, whether I shake with a certain hand, whether it's how I greet them, whether it's the product I use, whether it's the aftercare advice I give, that's why it's important to do a consultation.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question? I hope so.
Well, Lucy, as you said before, the passion you have, most times you answer almost all the questions we had here. You know, because we asked one question, but a question led to another answer and an answer. So the supportive answers kind of cover everything. But I want to go back on the consultation. You shared the importance of consultation. In Trinidad, that's a total no-no. How can you encourage locals or countries that have not yet been iTEC approved to get into that realm of consultation with a client? What is your advice?
I think just reinforcing how important it is for the client. Personally, it's so inbred within me. If a client won't let me do a consultation, I won't do the treatment. End of. I will not compromise my standard. And I think that's really important in all walks of life. There are times where you have to say, well, then I'm sorry, I can't. And don't be persuaded, well, they will. Well, then fine, that's okay. Go to them. It sounds horrible to say to someone, well, you can't say go and be their problem, but you don't want a problem that may generate. As I said, nothing's a problem till it's a problem. If that client then comes back to you, you've got no record, you've got nothing to back them or yourself. And this is the other thing. The flip side is part of my insurance, I've been insured for donkey's years, but it's changing. One of the codicils they put in, I think it was last year, was that if I hadn't performed a detailed and correct consultation, my insurance was immediately invalidated and I became personally liable. So if you haven't had a consultation, because that's where it will all go, if anything happens and you get taken to court or if legal action is taken against you, the first thing we'll say is, where's your consultation? And at what point did you decide that this was the right treatment? But if you can show that you've done everything you should, then your insurance will cover you and you'll be okay. It might be bumpy, might be rocky, might be really hard. You might do a lot of soul searching. But if you've got your consultation and you've done what you're supposed to do, you're covered. If you haven't, you're not. And I'm not willing to put my house, my family home on the line for somebody to come and try and take that away just by taking legal action against me and I haven't asked the right questions. So it's really important. And especially things like patch testing, if you're doing eye treatments, people will say, or hair tinting, oh, we don't bother with patch tests. Well, that's all very well. What's the worst that can happen? Your client could go blind, or they could have anaphylactic shock and die. You have to have, it sounds dramatic, but it is dramatic. You have to do your patch tests. You have to keep them. It's about keeping them safe. It's about you being responsible for your treatment and what you're doing. So it's really, really important. And if they don't, then just say, this is what I have to do. I'm under my insurance. I can't. And if they say, I don't mind, say, I know. And I really appreciate that you have that faith in me. But unfortunately, that's the level I work to and I can't compromise it. I'm so sorry. It's more than my job is worth. And if you work for a salon, if I had a salon still, if I found out one of my students or my therapists hadn't done the consultation, they're out. Because again, it's putting my insurance on the line because I cover them. Does that make sense? So it's really, really important. But it's really important to be respectful and let them know what you discuss between yourselves is completely and utterly confidential. So you could actually not have names. You could have a client code and you can have it on a computer where it's password protected. And you can say this will only be shared with your permission if you come back in and I'm not here and somebody else has to take your treatment, for instance. So again, if a client prefers not to say, I have a disclaimer on all of mine that says, I have answered all questions fully and to the best of my ability. Any omissions are entirely my responsibility and not the responsibility of my therapist. Therefore, any contractions or adverse reactions arising from misinformation is my responsibility, and they sign it. They can't touch me. I've done my best. Make sense? Did that answer your questions? So I always say about 1,000 words, when 5 would probably do.
So my next question is actually to support employers from an employability standpoint. What can salon owners and employers expect from an iTEC certified professional in terms of skill and service delivery?
Oh, that's easy. It just shows that you've hit a European standard, which is it's measurable. They know that if we say you can paint a nail, you can paint a nail. If we say that you can do a pedicure, you can do a pedicure, or a makeup, you can do it to a professional standard. It shows that what you've done is measurable. It shows that you have reached a benchmark. With most of our qualifications, they are graded. We have pass, merit, and distinction. So all of our qualifications will have some kind of theory element, which will be either an assignment or it'll be a multiple choice question paper, and they'll have a practical element. Those 2 marks are taken and to put together and divided by 2. So you'll come out with either anything from 60 to 74% is a pass, 75% to 89% is a merit, and 90% to 100 is a distinction. But it shows you're good enough, okay? And all the time you'll have students that just pass, and you'll have some that are a little bit, because we all have our favourite things, right? So if they do their beauty specialist diploma, which comprises of facial with eye treatments, manicure, pedicure, waxing, they might do better at some things than others. You'll have some that are very good all round. Also, I see sometimes students that are theoretically exceptional. Practically, they need a bit more practice. And that also is the one thing nobody can teach. We cannot teach practice. We can show you the best techniques. We can give you whatever information, show you as many times as we want. But the only person that can make it perfect is the student, is by practice. And even world skills level nail technologists, one of whom I trained with her mum. She wrote an amazing book called The Encyclopedia of Nails, Anna Swain. And Kelly was her daughter. She was a world champion. She was amazing. She'd be doing a fantastic set. But if she went on holiday, she said her time dropped. So she knew when she came back off holiday, even just a week, she had to give an extra however long just to get her speed and her skill back up. So it just shows you, even the best, you still have to practice. Ask any chef. It's like any practical skill. You have to, like putting a perm roller in, like putting tint on. You just have to practice.
Right. You spoke about speed.
Yeah.
And in yesterday's exams, I realized timing was everything. Precision, if it is 10 minutes, it is 10 minutes. How important is that timing in the international market?
So it depends where you work. And I have seen in different countries, timing and attitudes towards time have very, very different opinions and different approaches. If you go in a busy salon in London, in the West End, you will probably be booked back to back. So if you run 5 minutes late for your first client and you carry on doing that, by the end of the day, you've got clients that are really unhappy because they need to be in and out. So timing is absolutely crucial. The therapeutic hour is usually about 50 minutes. You should tidy up as you go along, and you've got 5 minutes at the end just to kind of get everything ready for your next client. And when they come in, you've got literally 5 minutes to get them on the couch comfortable, quick consultation overview, and then into your treatment. So your timing is crucial. If you're working on your own and you're a mobile, or you can be much more fluid. But generally, people want to know how much time they've got to take out of their day. So I do not like going to a salon and being kept waiting. If I have been told my appointment's going to be an hour and a half, I don't want it to be 2 hours or 3 hours, because I don't know what it's like here, but in London you have to pay for your parking. So you can't go running out of your salon with your tint on or what have you and run across and get more parking. So it is cultural, it does depend. But also, it sounds horrible, but it's very true. In industry, time is money, but also product is money. So it's a resource. Don't waste your resources. Don't waste your time, and don't waste your products. And don't waste your own energy. Why take 3 hours for something you can do in 2 or 1? It's not necessary to take so long. It doesn't mean you can't be thorough if you're not quick. And depending on areas, so for instance, when I was working in media makeup, if my client or my artist was wanted on set, they had to be done because the director was shouting. They had to be done. I couldn't be slacking with that. Again, on fashion shows, you've got girls coming, getting changed. They've got maybe a lipstick change color or a different eye look or something that you've got to do in seconds. You have to do it, perhaps while they're having dresses and hair and all the rest of it done at the same time. But it's got to be quick. You've got no time to say, I just need 5 more minutes, because you haven't got 5 more minutes. So it depends very much on the area you're looking at, really. But timing is very, very important. I know that the girls on the ships, for instance, they will have people booked back to back. So they'll have to get their skills up. They'll have to get their skills up to doing a set, clearing up, turning around and having another client because they've got a client waiting. And the client doesn't want to be sit there waiting. They'd rather be on deck sipping Prosecco or champagne and getting their tan, I'm sure. So, yeah, timing's really key.
Jazan?
So I want you to talk a little. We're talking everything around the iTEC qualification, but I think it would be valuable to also talk about the structure of it. Can you explain the structure and content of an iTEC qualification? What areas of study are emphasized in most of the qualifications?
Yeah. So with iTEC qualifications, there'll be practical elements and a theory element. So in my experience as a teacher, and also as a student. A lot of students are very frightened by theory. Don't be. When I teach, I will go around the classroom and I will say, what are you enjoying? And what are you struggling with? And it's nearly always, I'm enjoying the practical, I'm struggling with the theory. All the theory is like a instruction. That's it. It's how you do or why you do something. That's all it is. So when you look at it from that point of view, it kind of takes all the scariness out of it. So most of our qualifications, they will have different elements. And usually the first one is to understand why you do something, then how you do something, and then you'll have 2, which is prepare to and then do. So there'll be different elements in of those, and they're all broken down with different topics as to exactly why, and then what's covered. To setting up, to hygiene, there's a very high emphasis on hygiene because we don't want to infect people. And I think COVID, I remember laughing with colleagues. It's taken COVID to show the world how to wash their hands properly. Are you serious? Crazy. But just recently I read somewhere that in the 1800s in England, the infant mortality rate was really quite low. And there was a turning point when physicians that were required to attend a birth rather than a midwife, it was usually their babies that died. And they said it was because of the intervention by the surgeon. It wasn't. It was the fact that the surgeon was coming out of one operating room, going into another operating room and not washing their hands. The moment they started washing their hands between patients, the infant mortality rate more than doubled. Like that. So there's a great emphasis on hygiene. You'll have to prove your skills. So you'll be required to practice on models. So all your friends and family can have lots of lovely treatments while you're practicing. You'll be asked to keep track of them. You can see your skills grow. But it's all about also understanding the legalities and how and why you do something. So we tie in everything. The theory you can learn by yourself, of course, but the practical, you need skilled tutors to show you exactly how to do something and break the skills down. But no one's expecting you to be an expert first off. It's baby steps. So you learn about all the different things and why and how they work and what's in them and what's not, and how to test if you need to test, and how to apply them, and how to look after your tools, how to present yourself. So there's lots of different elements, but it basically comes down to 4 elements. And that's why you have the practical exam. A good teacher will be looking at you all the way through your training and measuring you against the marking criteria to show where you're naturally weak. Because there'll always be things that you miss out on until you're kept being drawn back to where you are. And again, always constantly testing theory, but there's lots of different ways you can break down theory. If you look at theory about being an instruction of how or why you do something, it makes it much simpler. Did that answer your question?
It does.
Good.
And it actually triggered another valuable point, or another area that I want us to discuss, and it has to do with image. Now, in our part of the world, unfortunately, we are still trapped in the mindset that vocational skills altogether, not just cosmetology, are directed to persons who are perceived as less academically inclined. Yeah, we're still stuck there, unfortunately, and I'm really looking forward to when we can move past that, because worldwide, vocational skills is the field or the careers that is taking a number of countries forward. That being said, apart from that mindset, culturally, the cosmetology industry is not an attractive industry, in that the professions or the professionals that we have here don't look like professionals. When we visited Salon International recently, we were amazed that barbers actually wore shirt and ties to do a barber, to cut hair. But if you visit a salon here, very few barbers take that level of prestige with their skill. And I mean, parents may want to, and we would have had conversations with some of the hairdressers there at Salon International who came from the Caribbean, and their parents frowned upon the idea of them becoming a cosmetologist because it really doesn't look attractive. We don't present ourselves. And I know in the exam, 5 marks is awarded for how you look. And if you do not get 3 out of those 5 marks, regardless of how well you perform the skill, you're going to fail the exam.
Yeah.
So I really want you to just emphasize or touch a little bit on why image in this industry is so important. I mean, we know it, but for whatever reason, we take it for granted. And again, it's part of the mindset, as I mentioned. So I just come in to do some nails. So I can just run out my house to just do the piercing nail. It's only now I'm seeing where, and we have two persons here who actually try to represent the brand because they see their career as a profession.
Yeah.
Because it is a profession, so.
It is. Well, your candidates were very well turned out yesterday. Their appearance was lovely. It was industry standard. It was European standard or international standard, as I should say. But everything makes sense. So from keeping your hair off your face and your neck, it's so that it doesn't actually fall into whatever you're doing. Jewelry, it's so that it doesn't dangle all over your client, but most importantly, doesn't get ruined. Long nails so that you don't hurt your client, but also so that you can keep your nails clean and make sure you can see that they're actually clean. No slip shoes with a full toe and full back so that you don't slip. Trousers of a certain length so you don't fall over your trousers. Clean simply because you need to be clean. You don't want to be passing anything on to your client. Body odor, chewing gum. No one likes to have someone chewing gum while they're over them, and nobody likes bad breath or body odor while they're being worked on. It's about taking pride in yourself, but also I think in the beauty and related industries, the first thing people will do is they will buy you. They will buy how you look. And if you look smart and if you look presentable, and I wouldn't go to a skincare specialist that had bad skin. I wouldn't go to somebody to have my makeup done if they weren't wearing makeup. I have to say, when I'm working on set and I'm up at 4 a.m, yeah, perhaps not so much makeup, but then I'm doing something different. No one's buying me. I'm there doing a job. It's a bit of a different thing, and I'm off in a very sweaty environment. It's not practicable, but certainly depending where you are, if you're behind a counter, for instance, working for MAC or Dior or Charlotte Tilbury, you have to embody their look. Certainly when I worked for Lauder or Clarins, everyone had a uniform. We had to have our hair a certain way. It's corporate identity as well. If you look at even airline stewardesses, it's about having that really professional image. It inspires confidence. And I know that I'm dressed more casually today, but when I examine, I'm in my hair is up, my jewelry is different. I have usually I have a jacket on, I have trousers, I have court shoes on, my glasses because otherwise I can't see very well close up. I like my world in soft focus. But when you put on your uniform as a therapist, it helps you become more confident. And I think that's the same with everything. And you want to have a uniform that you can put on because you don't want to ruin your own clothes either, because some of the things we do are very messy. But it's very, very important to convey the right image. But if you look at different salons over the world, there will be lots of different kinds of images, some that are very young and funky, some that are more traditional or classic. So find where you want to be. But students I'm looking here now look lovely. So, yeah. But it's very important to reflect a good image. And regarding, I think once you talk about beauty, everyone thinks it's a bit kind of like, oh, yes, well, they can do beauty or they can do hairdressing because they're not very clever. You have to be clever. And everybody can be clever, okay? If you have passion enough, I believe anybody can learn anything if they have passion enough. So you've got to learn about your chemicals. You've got to understand how they react. You've got to learn about your different layers of the skin, how your skin reacts. You've got to learn about nail diseases, skin diseases. So if people are going to have that mindset, that's okay. Let them, different. And then maybe one day you'll be doing a quiz and they'll ask you how many bones there are in the neck. And you can say, well, there's 7. And they will look at you and go, how do you know? Well, I had to learn that from anatomy and physiology. Or what's the longest muscle in the body? The sartorius. It runs from the hip to the knee, and it turns out. We have to know an awful lot. So, but people will always draw opinions, I think. So, but it's changing. It's changing. The more we progress. Yeah.
You kind of again answered all the questions. So you don't talk too much. You just go with the flow. And that was the question I wanted to ask in reference right after image. And Josanne, like, she was in my mind and she took it and you ran with it again. I don't know if you could open the floor to those of you hairdressers, nail technologists, students, if you all educators, if you all want to ask Lucy a question, the floor is there for you. It's open right now.
It's a personal question. What motivates you in your job after so many years? Because you mentioned 40 plus years. So what motivates you to keep this passion for so many years?
So many things. As a therapist, I love making my clients feel great. That's a passion. I love helping people with a problem. If they come to me with a skin problem, I like to help look at them holistically, how they're creating that problem, because your client's always what they bring, what changes they can make. As a teacher, I love taking somebody from no knowledge to knowledge and then see them exceed, sometimes way, way further than I would ever go. I remember recently, actually it wasn't that recently, it was a few years ago, just before COVID, I went to a college. They were taking on our nail qualifications, a whole suite of nail qualifications. And I saw her diploma and I recognized it. And I said, your tutor? And she said, yes, my tutor was Lucy Noddings, and that was my name back then. And I said, well, that was me. And it was so lovely. 20 years ago, I had taught her, and here she was with her own school, and she'd been a world champion. And it was just amazing to see that growth. I've never been a world champion, gosh. But to see somebody do that and know that you were a tiny, tiny part. I taught her manicure and pedicure. After that, she went off and did goodness knows what. I love examining students. I know you're nervous when you're a student. I'm still a student. I did an exam a few weeks ago myself in more advanced treatments, but I'm still learning. And I love getting the best out of people. I love supporting the colleges. I love the camaraderie between my fellow tutors from all over the world. We all have the same problems. When I talk to them and I say, oh, well, this student was like this, and they go, oh, how did you know? It's kind of good. I've got one exactly the same. And it's always changing. It's always changing. There's always something new to learn. There's always something developing. It's never small. So yeah, what keeps my passion? It's just that. It's an amazing industry.
Thank you very much. Can I ask one more question? I work with my questions, but you answer most of them.
Sorry.
I just have one more question.
I don't know if I'm sorry or not about that, actually.
Don't be. What is one of the most, that's that question. This one, in many years of experience, what are some details beautician or esthetician takes for granted that you notice that persons who in the industry, what they take for granted that really makes a big difference?
What they take for granted? I don't think you can take anything for granted. You really can't. And again, I've mentioned it before, COVID taught us that. Because suddenly we had no clients, we weren't allowed to interact. And also, if you noticed, I don't know if it was the same here, but certainly in the UK, the barbers were allowed to open up, the beauty therapists weren't. Really? So all the MPs went off and got their hair cut and shaved and all the rest of it, but the beauty therapists weren't allowed to touch their female clients, which is a bit bizarre. I don't think you can take anything for granted. If anything, with some students that come into the industry, I think they have the misconception that it's easy and it's only beauty. and you don't have to be very clever. We've already touched on that. And how hard it can be. You have to be all things to all people. You have to be very, very discreet. You have to be very, very honest. You have to be very hardworking. You have to love the unlovable and not take anything personally. So it's and always do your best. And I honestly mean this when I say that every person you touch, you have to touch with complete love and respect. And if you can't do that, you have no right touching them. You really haven't. But I think, yeah, if anything, people underestimate or take for granted just, oh, yeah, I could do that. It's easy. It's not. It's hard. And you have to leave your own problems at the door.
Thank you very much.
I think another thing, actually, thinking about it, about underestimating, I think you can underestimate what it can open up for you. I've got clients that have become friends over the years. They're not as close as my out of therapy friends, but I care deeply about them and the relationships you build and the things they tell you. They do sometimes really. So get yourselves equipped with some counselling skills, especially if people talk to you a lot about their life, and you have to be completely discreet, and it's hard sometimes. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Denicia. I was in the exam yesterday as
Congratulations.
well. Thank you. I'm a nail technician. I met Josanne in business training we had, and I expressed how much passion I had for the industry, and I was willing to go forward, and she introduced me to the iTEC course, and I'm so happy that I did it. I have two questions. One is, you mentioned that you did a lot of different, you was in a lot of different fields, right? How exactly will you identify when it's time to move on to something else? Is it a internal thing or is it a external thing, meaning that, all right, this isn't working for you, or people complaining or whatever? Or is it something within you that you saying, all right, well, I want to do something else, I want to try something new? Or does it have external things that, all right, you're really not good at this, you may like it, but you're really not good at this? So that's one of the questions.
Okay, good question. Personally, if I'm not good at something, I practice until I'm excellent. I really am hard on myself, and I will practice until I can do it, even if I don't really want to do it, if that makes sense. I like to, because if I'm going to teach it, I want to be able to be that good that I can break it down and get a student to that level. I remember I didn't like reflexology when I first learnt it, which is working on zones of the feet. I thought I was going to love it. I was so excited to learn it. And then my very first day, I absolutely hated it. There was this long toes, hairy toes, very smelly, not very clean bloke that I was working on. I really wasn't, and I just didn't like it at all. But when I revisited it again 15 years later, I love it. I think things sometimes come to you organically over time. Also, back in the day when I started training, we didn't have mobile phones. Heck, we didn't even have computers in the house. You had to go to the library if you wanted to borrow a computer, let alone a mobile phone. And I was so protective of my client base. If a client said, oh, I've heard of such and such therapy, do you know anyone who does it? And I'd say, oh, you mean apart from me? I would then quickly go and ring round or look in the local paper or somewhere and find somewhere where I could quickly train and do, so like Indian head massage, but massage led to aromatherapy, so things do lead. And I think as you get older, your interest changes. So first of all, I was very much makeup and skincare. Then I went into more management side of things. Then I had a big life change event, and I decided I want to make a difference in the world. So I retrained as a naturopath. So that was a big shift for me. And then that took me on a very, very intense journey of working as a naturopath, where I then started teaching. I became an expert in my field, and I worked as alongside consultants, and I specialised in idiopathic infertility and also myalgic encephalitis, ME. All my clients fell pregnant, so I had to learn baby massage. So it was quite organic. But I also then felt that a lot of my work was very heavy, working with lots of people that were struggling to have babies. I find also sometimes you can find it mirrors your own life. And I was struggling with that at that time. I did go on to have children, but whatever. And I wanted to do something really fluffy and pretty. So I went back and did all my nail tech qualifications and nail art and airbrushing. So I think it's just see where it goes. Also, you will have clients that come in and say, have you heard about this new therapy? And you'll think, oh, and you'll investigate it and you'll think, I'm not doing that. Or you might think, that's interesting. So it depends where you go as well. I think it's a combination of things. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thanks. The second question is, right, here in the Caribbean, we have a very low standard of customer service, right? As a professional, as a beauty professional, how do you handle, okay, there are some people, they may not really fit, or there's some people, they are not really kind, as they say, love the unlovable. But if you are at a place where you can't move forward, you feel like you can't move forward with a client due to, there might be being disrespectful, you're feeling a certain level of pressure every time you deal with them. How do you as a professional deal with people like that without jeopardizing your business, without, looking foolish, all these things? Like, I think that's something that we need to learn in the Caribbean, how to deal with these situations. And I think that we need to get to that level. So, how would you deal with those situations?
So one of the things that I think I've realized, especially with my work as a holistic therapist, is if I've got my counseling training, which I got to protect myself from all the stuff that my clients bought me, was that if I've got a problem with somebody, that's my problem, not them. Mm-hmm. That's a really hard one to look at. And sometimes actually also admitting to that therapist or that client that I'm not their therapist, that I really respect them, but I don't think I'm giving them the quality of treatment that they deserve and that they're paying for. Mm-hmm. And gently recommending that they go to somebody more experienced. It's a hard conversation to have. You're right. But once they realize that you have their best interests at heart, sometimes all you have to do is acknowledge, I have a problem with this person, and the problem goes away, if that makes sense. But sometimes it doesn't, in which case you've got to examine why you've got that problem. But if they're being disrespectful towards you, don't allow that behavior. I'm also a believer that people only treat you the way you let them. Right. So if you demand a certain type of respect, kindly, then that's what you should get. And if you're not getting it, then, and there's other tricks. You can just say, look, let me book you in for your next appointment. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm fully booked. Let me put you on my waiting list. Right. But in the meantime, I know a fantastic therapist. Check her out. Let me recommend you. It's good to network because, again, it's the same. It's why we're not all friends with the same people sometimes. You have your tribe, if you know what I mean. So you're not, if you can't really give yourself heart and soul to that person and what you're doing with them, there's no harm in passing them on. You're making space for somebody who should be with you. Don't keep what isn't yours. Right. And don't do that in all areas of your life, girls. Let them move on. Yeah, because all you're doing is blocking that energy, blocking that way for somebody better to come into your life. So, and things are organic. But if you want to keep your client, then get trained in whatever they want you to be doing. But don't do things you feel uncomfortable doing. Always work in your own comfort zone. And I don't mean, oh yeah, I can do that, that's fine. It's always good to stretch yourself. But check, is it okay? Is it okay in my stomach, my heart, and my head? If these three don't align, then I need to look at that. So as soon as there's something wrong and I don't feel comfortable, I will protect myself and I can't do that treatment anymore. Sorry.
Right. Hi, Lucy.
Hi.
I'm Charisse.
Hello, Charisse.
How are you today? Welcome to our beautiful island.
Thank you so much. It's stunning. Great.
Just a little background. I too am iTEC qualified. I went to school in West Thames College. So I'm now an educator here. And as Josanne would have mentioned, the area is not as respected as it's supposed to be. So my question to you is, and maybe that will help bridge the gap that the problem that we're encountering here. How does one become an educator in England?
Okay. Yes. Well, usually they will have done some kind of qualification, either an NVQ or their iTEC. And you were at West Thames.
I went West Ham. So I have my NVQ, I'm iTEC qualified, and I have my diploma in beauty therapy and
And did you teach there, or did
No,
you,
I just
you were
came. I came
student?
right back home after, so I didn't get
Okay,
to explore it there.
congratulations, by
Thank
the
you.
So once you've had at least 2 years experience, you can start teaching, and you should be then working towards a teaching qualification. So we actually do have iTEC qualifications in education training.
Great.
Yeah, yeah. So, and those are more done online.
Okay.
And then you can send in videos if you're doing a micro teach and all the different things. It will be, again, all the different units are very, very carefully mapped out. You will have core or mandatory units, which you have to do. And then you'll have some optional units, which you can choose from. So when I did my training, I chose to do internal assessment.
Right.
And also then I did my IQA, which was, so I became an assessor. Then I became an internal quality assurance. Then I was asked to become an iTEC examiner. It's changed slightly now. But yes, the more qualifications you've got, if you want to go into examining, the more qualifications you have, the more things you can assess, the better.
Better. Okay. All right.
But that said, yeah, just if you've got that flair and that talent for teaching, make sure you put yourself through. You've already done it.
Yeah.
The tutors yesterday here very, very bravely put themselves through the qualifications as well. It's always good to go through it, because then you can guide your students and say, this is how it was done.
This is it. This is it.
And this is what it was like for me, because it's hard.
It's hard here because there's no direct link. There's no direct chain of command. There's no direct way in becoming a tutor here in Trinidad. I mean, I'm overqualified. If I go to England now, I'm like that, I could get a job. Here, it's very, very difficult. And as it is right now, there's no way to say, okay, I could teach at the secondary level versus the uni level versus the college level.
Yeah.
So they still haven't sorted that out.
Yeah.
So I'm inquiring because...
Yeah, I think that'll take time. But
Yeah.
certainly if you can find a vocational college such as this,
That is it,
and if you can teach part-time. No one has to teach full-time. I don't teach full-time. I teach at the moment in Norway, mainly.
I teach now,
Sorry?
I teach.
You do?
Yeah.
Fabulous. Great. But you can work towards your teaching qualification. And once you've got your teaching qualification, that may open more doors. Again, I don't know. The culture here might be resistant to it. But it does show that you can teach anything that you are qualified in.
Right.
And of course, once you become a teacher, you then start to fast track everything. So, and you'll find this as you get older and more, well, not necessarily older, but more experienced, a lot of the core information that you learn it overlocks, completely the same. So the health and safety is the same for this as it is for that. You don't have to learn that again. You've already learned it.
Okay.
So there are certain elements that you don't have to recover. So we have something with iTEC called RPL, recognition of prior learning. So that can be applied for, so you can have that recognised as a pass mark only. So if you're going for a credit or a distinction, you can't, because it will dilute the rest of the qualification. Or you can take it again to update your knowledge and show you still have current knowledge, which is always a good idea, I think. But you learn quicker. So you just find it's quicker and quicker and quicker. So my last course that I did, I was there for a day. And I did a long course crammed into with a doctor, one-on-one, and I crammed everything in because everything else I'd done online, it was just the practical element. I needed to know exactly what to put where and why and how much. And she watched my technique and went, yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
So it depends, yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
but
it
it's
does.
again, it's educating and making sure that everybody understands the process. That also that just because you can doesn't mean that you can teach.
This is it. Because we don't have, or what we are trying to do is introduce, because they have patterned actually the occupational standards to that of the British. So we have, while in England it's NVQ, we have CVQ here. So the occupational standards are similarly patterned after the same assessment process. However, the moving beyond that and taking the skill in now into making yourself an educator or beyond an educator is there's technicality.
Yeah.
Major technicality.
Yeah. But the good thing is, if you do your internal assessment and look at the assessment process and how to assess your own students, and if you look at the IQ, because of the internal quality assurance of making sure that those are robust, and then you have somebody coming to examine to overlook that process is actually done all very well, it can work.
We have that. It's just that
Exactly.
it stops there.
Yeah.
There's no beyond. What happens beyond? What if the student or the candidate wants to go beyond that or get into teaching? That's where the problem lies.
Yeah. So again, that would be more experience. And once they gain their experience, then they can actually come to shadow, maybe, and then work towards their own teaching diploma. But you can only gain a teaching diploma if you're teaching. And that's the problem. It's almost like having an apprentice. So you can have a student tutor teacher teaching alongside you. So they would shadow you. And then they would micro teach and take a portion of the class. So to build their confidence and their ability to actually demonstrate or to do theory or whatever it may be, they can set tasks. They can learn how to become, because again, it's a skill to learn how to become a teacher.
Okay.
Because there's quite a heavy theoretical understanding of that process.
That process
alongside what you're doing.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Lucy.
That's okay.
I don't have much of a question because I sat here and I gained so much. And by looking at you and stuff, it makes me feel like but want to be better at doing any profession at all. Right? I listen to you and you are a wonderful person. Right? At the exam, I was very nervous at first, but you made me feel so calm doing whatever it is I love best doing, because I do hair mostly and new into the makeup, and it is going excellent so far.
Good. Well done.
Right. So thank you so much.
My pleasure.
All right. Lucy, listening to everything you said today, it kind of propels me now to go into everything a little bit more. You know, years gone by, I was stuck at hairdressing only. But, you know, I always had the idea of expanding. And I'm too old to go and do all this. But you just give me that kind of push, that little pinch, that little prick to say, here, what? The sky's the limit. Also, seeing some of the presenters at Sado International, there is no limit.
None.
You know, there is no limit, and everyone is respected in their own field. And, you know, so much knowledge is out there. So, I think that's the trend that all of us should be on at this time, grasping all the knowledge in every aspect of the industry, because we don't know where we're going to end up, you know. So I want to encourage you all to take a little anywhere you can. That little might become your main factor. And eventually you might have 5 main factors, you know. So keep pushing on and keep pressing on and never stop learning.
Yeah, true.
Thank you very, very much. And I mean, I guess we're winding down very nicely because, Lucy, you're very holistic, just like your skill. And I really, really, really want to thank you, you know, and I really want to thank iTEC for sending you. I think we really needed this. We needed somebody as patient and as kind, not just for IME, but for Trinidad and Tobago as a whole. And I mean, when I entered into this industry with zero skills, I mean, my skill is administrative. I could do all the background stuff and look at the qualification and understand but I had zero skills. So presenting myself before you yesterday was in fact a lot. But I see the need for me to understand, even if I have no intention of becoming makeup artist. So I need to be able to understand what must be done so that I can properly guide others. And I really do look forward to building this relationship with iTEC, not just for me. I mean, I keep on saying country. You know, we need to move into that sphere. There are other Caribbean islands that have started that journey. Grenada, Jamaica, Barbados.
Yep.
They are always constantly evaluating themselves. And Trinidad and Tobago, we as a Trinbagonian people, we are very talented. I mean, you would have had the opportunity to see some of it yesterday.
Absolutely.
But it's just about fine tuning and just really perfecting so that when we present ourselves to the world, we really represent the Trinidad and Tobago brand. And I really look forward. I mean, Cherise touched on one of the challenges. It has a lot to do with the secondary school system. It's there, but it's not respected. And we really need to find that, to bridge that gap, where persons, when they inform 1 to 3, excited to be a cosmetologist. It's there because we visit schools. So this year alone, we would have visited over 25 schools.
Amazing.
Just to speak about the value of cosmetology. And the enthusiasm is there. But then you have the parents saying, no, there is no future for you here. That is the reality.
Yeah.
So then you end up with students who, as you rightfully stated, maybe struggling academically. And I agree with you that the struggle in academia has a lot more to do with how it's delivered as opposed to the person's ability.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they go through the system being ignored. They have a challenge. They are not chalk and talk. We're traditionally a chalk and talk. Teacher stands in front, talks. But some people are kinesthetic learners while others are auditory. So it's just not meeting their needs. So they continue to go through the system and they end up in cosmetology.
Yeah.
You know, I really look forward to the day when there is a rush for persons, because it's really hybrid learning. It's knowledge, skill, and attitude. You must know the science.
Yeah.
You must know the skill, and then you must have the right attitude.
Yeah.
You
It's
know,
very,
so
very
it's
true.
a combination of things. And I really look forward to when people are excited to want to become a cosmetologist here, not by accident
Yes.
or not by, okay, I'll do it as a side job, that they really start off.
Yeah. Like
making
me.
it a
I
profession.
got into it by accident. Look where it's taken me around the world. And I've met the most amazing people. It's been absolutely incredible. It's been a complete ride. It's just,
Our salon environment and, you know, our attitude and aptitude towards the work, you find that the paradigm, that's a joke, paradigm is going to shift.
Yeah.
Right? The interest is going to shift, right? I mean, the government and the powers that be have their responsibility to ensure that the area is under some ministry, because it's not under any ministry right now, to be able to have the licensing available and the business aspect of it set up. But just the whole legality of it. But it starts with us. It starts with us who are in the field now to be able to sell the craft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very true.
For us to sell it in order for everybody or anybody who's coming up to say, I want to.
But also look just how much this industry is in every other country. Why can't it be here?
Why?
Look at the beautiful island you have. I mean, for goodness sake, if this isn't a heaven on earth situation and the perfect background for a spa and spa training, I don't know what is.
It's a black sheep. It's a black sheep. And I really hope that very near in the future, it's sorted out. Because every year the industry is growing and growing and growing, and we are not growing with the industry.
But you're pioneers.
Yeah.
And that's the most wonderful thing. You are pioneers. This is just so exciting. And always have that mindset. Not I can't. It's just I can't yet.
Yeah.
And if you think ever, and I think it was Audrey Hepburn that said it, she said, it's a quote that says, what if you fall? Oh, but my darling, what if you fly? It's just try. And then if you can't, try again and try and find a different way and try. And just not everybody learns the same way. but everybody can learn. I'm proof of that. I was told at school, because I was dyslexic, they didn't have that back in those days. I was just called lazy and stupid. I wasn't. I was diagnosed at 29 when I was already teaching. I can read upside down and back to front. I'm a great problem solver, but it's finding that gift and it's undoing that lie that you were told sometimes. Because I think if you can make somebody else feel fabulous about themselves, whether it's how you've done their skin, how you've made their nails, how you've done their makeup for prom, how you've done their hair, how you've taught them how to look after themselves, maybe respect themselves a bit more, that's the greatest gift. It's amazing. It really is. It's fabulous.
Thank you, Lucy.
So, I think this brings us to close of this intimate discussion. I mean, I think we got a lot more than we bargained for. Correct?
That was a good thing.
And I really do hope, and I want to echo on the sentiments of Cherise with respect to it's our responsibility. And I do trust that having been a part of this intimate discussion with Lucy, that you take away something to assist in this journey, this transformative journey. I do believe it could happen. I think much sooner than later. iTEC is here, and it's just the beginning of a new transformation for the cosmetology industry. And I am not in this at all. Many people get into things for money making. This is really passion unfolding for vocational skills. I mean, I don't have it. I started off in drafting. I just never stayed in it. But I am fascinated by cosmetologists. You go, you sit, you see the amount of skill that goes into making someone feel and look beautiful. And that is what I really want to contribute to that growth. I want to contribute to that growth, and I need you all. I mean, and you mentioned that we need to be a community. Unfortunately, we're not a community yet. We're still competing against each other. And I've said to many persons, I'm here, but I don't see my competitors as competitors. I see them as business partners. Because if you could train and I just assist you in certification, then we're all on the same journey. I'm not taking away from you. I'm actually just adding value to the industry. We can all have students, but let your students be functioning at the level that we ought to be functioning. So I don't see my competitors in that way. But again, mindset. So I open a business and I think I need to take your customer. No, we have 1.5 million here now, and everybody has a different need. And you could specialize, which we realize in the industry. I could just we have a lot of persons now just laying wigs. That's all they do all day, lay wigs. So I really do hope that we could find that community and help each other to help Trinidad and Tobago move forward. And with that, I want to again say thank you very much, Lucy.
My absolute pleasure.
And I look forward to this continued growth. Suzette, you want to say anything before we go?
Thank you, Lucy. See you next September. Thank you, Lucy. See you next September.
They might not send me. They might send
We hope they send you.
We hope to send you.
We hope
It's
we
right.
need you here for at least 2-3 years. So
Yes.
we could prepare for whoever else come. I think after we pass with you for 3 years, then we can handle somebody else. Yeah.
So many of the trainees had the students who from yesterday, they all had the same thing to say about Lucy. Wonderful person, made them feel relaxed. She's a lovable person. And being the first time for us in here at IME and in Trinidad and Tobago, what else we could have asked for?
Bless you. That's very kind.
You know, so thank you again. And let's see. Well, I'm hoping to see you in September.
I hope so.
I wonder if we could ask.
I'm not allowed to. You can ask.
We can ask. Right, we can
I'm
ask.
happy to.
Yes.
If not, then I must meet up with you at professional meeting.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Yes. All right. So thank you, everyone.